Section 1. It's 9 p.m. You've just finished dinner, and you're unwinding with a movie. Then, your phone buzzes. It's a text from one of your friends, a long, dramatic message, filled with panic and urgency. They're in the middle of another crisis. It's not a simple question or a casual check-in. No, it's one of those emotional emergencies where they expect you to drop everything and jump in to fix things. You feel the immediate rush of tension in your chest, a familiar knot of stress tightening around your heart. It's a feeling you know all too well. It's not the first time this has happened. In fact, it's become a pattern. Every time they hit a rough patch, you're the first person they reach out to, the person they turn to for emotional support. And each time, you're expected to give your time, your mental energy, and your empathy. But when the tables are turned, when you need a friend, where are they? They vanish. Silence. They disappear until the next time they need something from you. You try to brush it off, but the frustration builds. You start wondering, why am I always the one giving and never receiving? You've probably been in a similar situation. You've probably experienced the emotional exhaustion of always being there for others, offering a shoulder to cry on, giving advice, providing support, only to find that when it's your turn to ask for help, your calls for support go unanswered. It's draining. And worse, it feels unfair. This isn't just a one-off occurrence, it's the pattern that has been happening for far too long. Over time, this imbalance eats away at your mental and emotional well-being. But you keep showing up, because you care. You feel obligated, maybe even guilty, to keep giving, to keep helping, to keep being there for them. And that's the problem. You've blurred your boundaries so much that you've allowed yourself to be used as their emotional crutch. This is the pain of having blurred boundaries, of giving without receiving, of being emotionally drained by one-sided relationships. And the worst part is that it takes a toll on your mental health. When you're always the one giving, you start losing sight of your own needs. You start to forget what it feels like to be supported, to have your emotions validated, to have someone truly be there for you. You might not even realize it, but you begin to feel like your worth is tied to what you can do for others, your emotional value measured by your ability to provide support. And here's the real problem: if you don't make a change, this pattern will only continue. The imbalance won't correct itself. You'll keep pouring from an empty cup, giving everything you have until there's nothing left. Your friendships, relationships, and your emotional state will deteriorate. What will this cost you? It costs you time, mental energy, and most importantly, self-respect. Over time, you might find yourself resenting the very people you once cared for, because you've been giving so much of yourself and receiving nothing in return. Eventually, you'll burn out, emotionally exhausted and wondering why you keep sacrificing for people who never return the favor. But here's the good news: it doesn't have to be this way. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how to set healthy boundaries, boundaries that will protect your emotional well-being and give you the space you need to thrive. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand how to stop being an emotional crutch for others, how to identify which relationships are draining you, and most importantly, how to stop allowing people to take advantage of your kindness. You'll learn how to establish boundaries that respect your needs and your energy, and you'll feel empowered to say no when necessary, without guilt. Today, you'll walk away with tools that will help you. 1. Identify which friendships are actually one-sided and where the emotional imbalance lies. 2. Shift how much emotional energy you give to people who never pour back into you. 3. Learn how to build relationships where care and support are mutual, and feel okay walking away when it doesn't work anymore. Before we go further, a quick educational note: this lesson is inspired by Stoic principles and is meant to provide emotional insights, not medical, psychological, financial, or legal advice. If you want steady Stoic Focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships every week, this is the channel for you. Stay with me until the very end, and while you're here, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. First, we're going to look at how to identify one-sided relationships. This isn't always as easy as it sounds, but with the right perspective, you'll be able to spot the signs that you've been giving more than you're receiving. Then, we'll dive into strategies for protecting your emotional energy. You'll learn how to say no, how to communicate your boundaries without feeling guilty, and how to prioritize yourself. After that, we'll focus on how to enforce these boundaries, how to stand firm when others challenge them. Finally, we'll discuss how to let go of relationships that no longer serve you, and how to feel confident walking away when it's clear that the dynamic will never change. And in a bit, we're going to break down a real-life example of someone who was stuck in a similar situation, but used these tools to regain their emotional freedom. You'll see exactly how setting boundaries turned their situation around. So, grab your pen, sit back, and let's dive into the first step in reclaiming your emotional energy. Together, we'll explore how to set boundaries that protect you without feeling guilty or selfish. It's time to make that change. Section 2. Have you ever stopped to think about the relationships in your life and how much emotional energy you're pouring into them? It's easy to get caught up in the routine of giving, especially when you care deeply for someone. But there's a point when you have to ask yourself, am I the only one giving here? Relationships should be built on mutual support, but often, they aren't. Sometimes, we end up carrying the emotional weight for someone else, and the scales tip in one direction. One-sided relationships aren't always obvious. In fact, they can sneak up on you, especially when you're the type of person who's naturally empathetic and always ready to help. But when you're giving more than you're receiving, you start to feel drained, even empty. You feel exhausted, and yet, it seems like your efforts never get reciprocated. These relationships can leave you feeling like you've been doing everything right, being supportive, understanding, and caring, but you end up questioning whether it's worth it. This is where it gets tricky. You might not realize just how much you're sacrificing until it starts to affect your emotional well-being. The problem with one-sided relationships is that they're built on an unspoken expectation that you will always give without ever receiving. You might think you're doing a good thing by offering emotional support, but what happens when that energy is never returned? What happens when you keep giving, and there's nothing left for you? The answer is burnout. You start feeling resentful and emotionally drained. You might even start to avoid the person, but then, the guilt creeps in. Why should you feel guilty for protecting yourself? The emotional cost of these one-sided relationships is significant. If you're always the one who listens, offers advice, and carries the emotional load, you start to lose touch with your own emotions and needs. Over time, this can lead to feelings of neglect and loneliness. You might find yourself emotionally detached from your own life, constantly focusing on others' problems while ignoring your own. It's like being stuck in a never-ending cycle of giving, emotionally bankrupt, with nothing to show for it but exhaustion. If nothing changes, the cost is clear. You'll continue down this path, constantly draining yourself. The friendships may remain, but the emotional toll will keep piling up until you can't bear it any longer. Your emotional health will suffer, and you'll begin to feel less like yourself. But the truth is, you don't have to keep living this way. You have the power to take control of your emotional energy, and it starts with recognizing when a relationship is one-sided. One of the main reasons this happens is due to a lack of boundaries. When you don't set boundaries in your relationships, it's easy for the balance to tip toward one person doing all the giving. This is especially common in friendships where you feel responsible for the other person's well-being, often out of a sense of duty or loyalty. The reason this becomes so problematic is that it creates an unhealthy dynamic where you feel like your worth is tied to how much you give to others. It's easy to lose sight of your own needs and desires when you're constantly focusing on someone else's emotional state. Setting boundaries isn't about being selfish or rejecting people in need. Instead, it's about creating a space where both parties can give and receive equally. Boundaries allow you to maintain your emotional health while still being supportive. It means understanding that it's okay to say no, to step back, and to take care of yourself when you need it. By having boundaries in place, you protect yourself from being drained by someone else's emotional demands. So, why does this work? It works because boundaries create balance. They allow you to recognize when a relationship is no longer serving you and gives you the tools to protect your energy. Boundaries also give the other person an opportunity to step up and offer support when you need it. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, and boundaries are the foundation of that respect. If one person is always giving and the other is always taking, the relationship becomes imbalanced and unsustainable. But when both people are contributing emotionally, the relationship becomes much more fulfilling and supportive for both parties. You're probably wondering how to communicate this shift without coming off as cold or detached. The key is to use clear and respectful language that asserts your boundaries without guilt. Here's a microscript that you can use when you feel overwhelmed by someone's emotional demands. Hey, I know you're going through a tough time, and I want to support you, but I need to take a step back for a little while. I need to take care of myself, too. I'll be here when I'm able to give my full attention. This simple line allows you to set a boundary in a kind but firm way. You're acknowledging their struggle while also prioritizing your own emotional well-being. This approach prevents you from feeling guilty for needing space, and it opens up a healthy dialogue about what's appropriate for both of you moving forward. Let's break this down in a practical, everyday example. Imagine you're at work, and your coworker keeps coming to you with their problems. Every time they face a challenge, whether it's work-related stress, personal issues, or interpersonal conflicts, they come straight to you, expecting you to drop what you're doing and help them figure it out. At first, you're more than happy to lend a hand, offering advice and support. But as the weeks go by, it becomes clear that this is a pattern. You're constantly pulled into their emotional drama, while your own workload and stress pile up. One day, you have a big project deadline, and your coworker comes in again, complaining about the same issues. You're stretched thin, overwhelmed, and you feel like you can't handle one more emotional burden. This time, instead of immediately jumping into fix-it mode, you use your boundary-setting script. Hey, I know you're dealing with a lot, but I've got my own deadlines I need to focus on right now. I can't give you the attention you need today, but let's talk when I'm free. In that moment, you've prioritized your own needs, set a clear boundary, and maintained your emotional health. Your coworker might not be thrilled, but they'll respect your honesty, and they might even realize that they've been relying on you too much. You've communicated your limits in a calm and straightforward way, and by doing so, you've taken control of the situation. To make sure this shift sticks, your tiny action for today is to set a specific time for yourself where you'll put your emotional needs first. Block out 30 minutes in your calendar just for you, no work, no phone calls, no texting. This is your time to recharge and focus on your own mental health. If you find yourself constantly caught up in other people's emotional needs, this small, daily commitment will give you the space you need to stay grounded. Take a moment now to reflect. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think about one situation where you felt emotionally drained by someone who relied too much on you. Allow yourself to feel that exhaustion for a moment. Now, imagine saying to that person, I need to take a step back for a while. Feel the relief in that moment. You've set your boundary, and it feels right. Breathe deeply again, and let that sense of relief sink in. Repeat this visualization whenever you feel your boundaries being tested. Section 3. When you hear the word boundary, what comes to mind? For many of us, boundaries seem like barriers or walls, things that separate us from others. But boundaries aren't about shutting people out. They're about creating a space where you can still be there for others while protecting your emotional energy. And here's the hard truth, setting boundaries is not selfish. It's essential. Especially when you've been the person always giving and never getting anything back. Setting boundaries isn't easy. The first time you say no or take a step back, it can feel like you're letting someone down. You might fear that they'll think you don't care or that you're being rude. But here's the thing, without boundaries, you're slowly eroding your own mental and emotional health. You're sacrificing your well-being for the sake of others, and that's not sustainable. In fact, it's a recipe for burnout, frustration, and resentment. In this section, we're going to focus on how to set boundaries in a way that feels natural and healthy. We're not going to talk about shutting people out or being harsh. Instead, we'll explore how to communicate your limits with compassion and respect for both yourself and others. By the end of this, you'll have the tools you need to start setting clear, healthy boundaries without feeling guilty. Boundaries work because they allow you to take control of your emotional space. Without boundaries, you're constantly reacting to the needs of others. You're pulled in a million different directions, trying to please everyone and leaving yourself with nothing. But when you set boundaries, you're saying, I matter, too. My needs are just as important. This shift in mindset is crucial for your mental and emotional well-being. Setting boundaries helps you create the emotional space you need to recharge, reflect, and stay grounded. It also teaches the people around you how to treat you. When you communicate your needs clearly, you show others how to respect your time and energy. And here's the beauty of it: boundaries don't have to be confrontational. You can set them with kindness, compassion, and clarity. It's about respecting yourself enough to say, I need this, and doing so without apology. So, why does this work? When you respect your own emotional needs, you're able to show up for others in a healthier, more sustainable way. Boundaries allow you to give without burning out. They also give you the confidence to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you, without feeling guilty for prioritizing your own well-being. And when you consistently set boundaries, you reinforce your worth, showing others, and yourself, that you are worthy of respect and care. If you're new to boundary setting, one of the most challenging aspects is knowing what to say when someone asks for something you're not willing to give. The good news is, you don't have to make it complicated. Here's a simple script you can use to start setting boundaries, whether it's at work, in friendships, or with family. Thanks for reaching out. I'm unable to help with this right now, but I'll check in when I'm available. This line is clear, respectful, and gives you the space you need to set a boundary without feeling bad about it. You're not saying you don't care, you're simply acknowledging your own limitations. It allows you to step back and protect your emotional energy without apologizing for it. Imagine you're at work, and your colleague, who has a tendency to overburden you, asks for help with yet another urgent project. They've come to you many times before, each time with a crisis that requires your immediate attention. You've helped them out in the past, but this time, you're already drowning in your own work. You're stressed, overwhelmed, and know that you need to take care of yourself before you can help anyone else. In the past, you might have agreed to help, despite your own stress. But today, you're going to use your new boundary-setting skills. You take a deep breath, pause for a moment, and calmly respond with, "Thanks for reaching out. I'm unable to help with this right now, but I'll check in when I'm available." You feel a sense of relief immediately. You've set your boundary firmly but respectfully. There's no guilt, no over-explaining, and no feeling bad about it. You've communicated your needs in a way that feels comfortable and assertive. Your colleague may be surprised, but they'll respect your decision. In fact, setting a clear boundary may even prompt them to think twice before overloading you again in the future. And the best part? You've protected your emotional energy, allowing you to focus on your own work and well-being. Now, let's turn this into a measurable action you can take today. Your tiny action for today is to choose one situation in your life where you need to set a boundary. It could be at work, with a family member, or in a friendship. Write down the specific boundary you want to set and commit to communicating it. Whether it's saying no to a request, asking for more personal space, or telling someone that you need time for yourself, make sure the boundary is clear and firm. For example, if a friend constantly calls you late at night to vent about their problems, you could set the boundary by saying, "I'm happy to listen to you, but I need to start winding down by 9 p.m. Let's set a time to talk earlier in the evening." This small action will help you start building the habit of boundary setting, one step at a time. Let's take a moment to reflect on the boundaries you've set, or haven't set, so far. Close your eyes, and take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. Now, think about a recent situation where you felt overwhelmed by someone's demands. Allow yourself to feel the weight of that moment, the stress, the frustration, the feeling of being pulled in too many directions. Now, imagine you had set a clear boundary in that situation. What would have happened if you had simply said, "I need to take care of myself right now"? Picture the relief you would have felt in that moment, knowing you honored your own emotional needs. Breathe in again, and as you exhale, remind yourself, setting boundaries is not selfish. It's necessary. You are worthy of respect and care, just as much as anyone else. Section 4. You've set the boundaries. You've said no when you needed to. You've taken time for yourself, turned down requests, and asserted your emotional needs. But here's the thing, setting boundaries isn't always easy, especially when it causes discomfort. You've probably felt the pull of guilt, the sense that you've let someone down, or even the fear that the other person might be upset with you. This discomfort is natural, but it's also temporary. The more you practice boundary setting, the easier it becomes. In this section, we're going to dive into how to navigate the emotional discomfort that often arises when you first start setting boundaries. Whether it's guilt, anxiety, or fear of confrontation, these feelings are common. But what's important to remember is that discomfort doesn't mean you've made the wrong choice. In fact, discomfort is often a sign that you're doing something right. It means you're challenging the patterns of people-pleasing and emotional neglect, and that's never easy. The key here is to understand that discomfort is temporary. It's the growing pains of creating healthier, more balanced relationships. Over time, as you reinforce your boundaries, the discomfort will fade, and you'll begin to feel more confident in your ability to protect your emotional energy. The discomfort you feel when setting boundaries is a natural part of growth. Think of it like exercise. When you push your body to do something new or challenging, you might feel sore or uncomfortable afterward. But that discomfort is actually your body getting stronger. The same is true for your emotional and mental health. When you start setting boundaries, you might feel resistance either from others or from within yourself. You might worry about what people think, or you might feel guilty for not being able to help as much as you have in the past. But here's the truth, that discomfort is your signpost that you're making a change. Setting boundaries forces you to step out of the old patterns that have been draining you. It means you're no longer allowing others to take your energy without consideration, and that shift is going to feel unsettling at first. But that's okay. It's part of the process of reclaiming your emotional autonomy. The more you practice setting boundaries, the more comfortable you'll get with the discomfort. You'll begin to realize that it's not the end of the world if someone is upset or if they don't immediately understand. What matters is that you're taking care of yourself, and over time, others will learn to respect that. When discomfort strikes, one of the hardest things to do is sit with it. But in these moments, the best thing you can do is stay calm and reaffirm your decision. Here's a simple line you can use when you start feeling guilty or anxious about setting a boundary. I understand this might be difficult, but I have to take care of myself right now. This sentence helps you acknowledge the discomfort without letting it sway you. It's a reminder that your emotional well-being matters, and it's a way to stay grounded in the face of discomfort. By using this script, you take a moment to validate your own feelings and remind yourself that boundaries are about protecting your energy, not about being selfish. Let's put this into context with a real-world example. Imagine you're in a close friendship where you've always been the go-to person for support. Lately, though, the requests for emotional support have been more frequent, and they've been taking a toll on your mental health. You've been feeling overwhelmed, but you're afraid that if you start setting boundaries, your friend will be hurt or upset. One day, your friend reaches out again, asking for help with something that isn't urgent. You've already helped them multiple times this week, and you know you need a break. You remember the microscript, take a deep breath, and respond calmly. I understand this might be difficult, but I have to take care of myself right now. Your friend might not understand at first. They might even feel disappointed or frustrated. But here's the key, you didn't do anything wrong. You set a boundary that protected your well-being. The discomfort you feel in that moment is just a sign that you're learning to prioritize yourself. It's uncomfortable because it's new, but it's also necessary. You don't need to explain yourself further or justify your decision. Over time, your friend will learn to respect your boundaries, and you'll feel more confident in standing up for your own emotional needs. You might even notice that this new dynamic strengthens your relationship as both of you start to understand each other's limits better. Your tiny action for today is to identify one relationship where you're feeling the most discomfort about setting a boundary. This could be with a friend, family member, or even a colleague. Once you've identified this relationship, think of one small boundary you can set. Maybe it's saying no to a request, taking a break from emotional labor, or communicating your need for space. Whatever it is, set that boundary today. Write it down, make a plan for how you'll communicate it, and commit to following through. This simple action will help you reinforce your commitment to self-care and emotional protection. Let's take a moment to process everything you've just learned. Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and then exhale, letting go of any tension. Now, think about the discomfort you've experienced in the past when you set a boundary. Notice the physical sensations, the tightness in your chest, the discomfort in your stomach. Allow yourself to feel that discomfort fully, but don't let it control you. You are in control. Now, imagine that discomfort fading away as you stand firm in your decision to set boundaries. Visualize yourself confidently saying no when necessary and feeling a sense of relief afterward. You're taking back your emotional energy, and that feels empowering. Breathe in deeply, hold, and exhale. As you open your eyes, know that this discomfort is only temporary. With practice, it will become easier, and you'll feel stronger in your ability to protect your emotional well-being. Section 5. Once you've started setting boundaries and navigating the discomfort that comes with it, the next step is to build relationships that respect those boundaries. It's one thing to protect your emotional energy, but it's another to create relationships where that energy is not only protected but also valued. Healthy relationships, whether they're friendships, family dynamics, or work partnerships, require mutual respect. They thrive on balance, and that balance comes from both people caring about each other's emotional needs, not just their own. But here's the catch: not all relationships are equal. While some people will understand and respect your boundaries from the start, others might push back. It's essential to recognize that building balanced relationships requires a commitment from both parties. If you're the only one doing the work, it's time to reassess the relationship. True balance comes when both people are willing to listen, adapt, and grow together. In this section, we'll talk about how to build relationships where your boundaries are respected, how to communicate your needs effectively, and how to make sure your emotional energy is both given and received in healthy ways. You'll learn how to foster mutual respect in your relationships and how to tell when a relationship isn't as healthy as you'd like it to be. The core of any healthy relationship is mutual respect. Mutual respect is what allows people to give and receive without feeling drained or resentful. It means understanding that both people have needs, and those needs deserve to be met. In a balanced relationship, boundaries aren't seen as barriers or walls, they are seen as guidelines for creating a safe and supportive space for both people. Why does this work? When both people in a relationship honor each other's boundaries, it creates a sense of trust and emotional security. You don't have to worry about being taken for granted or feeling like you're constantly giving more than you receive. Instead, you feel confident that both parties are invested in the relationship's success. This sense of trust and security allows for a deeper connection, as both individuals feel comfortable expressing their emotions, knowing that the other person will listen and respect their needs. In a balanced relationship, when one person sets a boundary, the other person doesn't see it as a threat. Instead, they see it as a necessary step to ensure that the relationship remains healthy. They understand that boundaries are not personal, they're a way to protect both people's emotional well-being. This mutual understanding strengthens the relationship and allows it to thrive, even in the face of challenges. One of the most difficult parts of building a balanced relationship is making sure that both parties communicate their boundaries effectively. Sometimes, this means having tough conversations about what is and isn't acceptable. But it doesn't have to be confrontational. Here's a simple line you can use when you need to remind someone of your boundaries in a calm and assertive way. I really value our relationship, and for it to stay healthy, I need us to respect each other's time and energy. I can't always be available when you need me, but I'll let you know when I can be. This line clearly communicates your need for boundaries while also emphasizing that you care about the relationship. It's firm but respectful, and it sets the tone for future interactions. Let's take a look at how this works in a real-life example. Imagine you have a close friendship with someone you care deeply about. Over time, however, you've noticed that your friend frequently calls you in the middle of the night to talk about their problems. At first, you didn't mind, it seemed like a sign of closeness. But lately, it's been taking a toll on your sleep, leaving you exhausted for work the next day. You've tried to hint that you need to sleep earlier, but your friend doesn't seem to get the message. The pattern continues, and you start feeling frustrated and resentful. You realize it's time to set a clear boundary, but you're unsure how to communicate it without making your friend feel rejected. You sit down with them and calmly explain. Hey, I know you're going through a tough time, and I really want to be there for you. But I've noticed that our late-night conversations are starting to affect my sleep and my energy during the day. I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself so I can be the best friend I can be. How about we set a time earlier in the evening to talk, instead of late at night? Your friend might initially feel taken aback. They might not understand why you're setting this boundary. But you stay firm and compassionate. Over time, your friend respects your request and even starts reaching out during more appropriate hours. Your relationship becomes more balanced, and you both feel more connected because you can support each other without compromising your own well-being. Your tiny action for today is to identify one area of your life where you feel your boundaries are being tested. This might be with a friend, family member, or colleague. Once you've identified the issue, plan how you're going to communicate your boundaries in a calm and respectful way. Write down what you're going to say, and make a commitment to have that conversation today or within the next 24 hours. This simple action will start the process of building a balanced relationship where both your emotional needs and the other person's are respected. Let's take a moment to reflect on the relationships in your life. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, hold it for a second, and exhale slowly. Think about the relationships that are most important to you. Are they balanced? Do you feel like you're giving and receiving in a healthy way? Now, think about one relationship where you could set a boundary that would help create more balance. Imagine yourself communicating that boundary with calmness and confidence. Visualize how the other person reacts, whether they're surprised, understanding, or even resistant. Allow yourself to feel the relief that comes from standing firm in your emotional needs. Take another deep breath, and as you exhale, know that this practice of boundary setting will only strengthen your relationships over time. Section 6. At some point, no matter how much effort you put into protecting your emotional energy, you may find that the relationship just isn't working anymore. This can happen in friendships, romantic relationships, family dynamics, or even work relationships. Sometimes, despite your best efforts to set boundaries, communicate your needs, and create a balanced, reciprocal connection, the relationship remains one-sided or toxic. This can leave you feeling stuck, frustrated, and uncertain of what to do next. In this section, we're going to address one of the hardest steps in maintaining emotional health, knowing when it's time to walk away. This decision isn't easy. It often comes with a lot of guilt, fear, and uncertainty. After all, you've invested time, energy, and emotions into these relationships, and walking away feels like you're throwing all of that away. But here's the truth, you don't have to stay in relationships that are draining you. You have the right to prioritize your well-being, and sometimes that means walking away from people or situations that are no longer healthy for you. We're going to explore how to recognize when a relationship has crossed the line from challenging but manageable to toxic and draining. We'll also talk about how to make that decision to walk away with confidence, without the overwhelming feelings of guilt or doubt. Staying in a relationship that isn't serving you, no matter how much you care about the person, can have serious long-term consequences on your mental and emotional health. This isn't just about setting boundaries, it's about acknowledging when those boundaries are continuously disrespected, ignored, or violated. The longer you stay in a toxic or one-sided relationship, the more it chips away at your self-esteem, emotional health, and overall well-being. You start to internalize the unhealthy dynamics, believing that you don't deserve better or that you're obligated to continue giving and giving without receiving anything in return. Over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, bitterness, and emotional exhaustion. Walking away from a relationship isn't about rejecting the person, it's about rejecting the harmful pattern that's been established. You are choosing to protect yourself and make space for relationships that are more balanced and fulfilling. Understanding that staying in an unhealthy dynamic can be far more damaging than leaving it is key. When you stay, you sacrifice your own well-being, which ultimately impacts your ability to show up in healthier relationships where your boundaries are respected and your emotional energy is appreciated. So, why does walking away work? When you walk away from a relationship that isn't serving you, you free up space for better relationships that honor your emotional energy. You stop draining yourself on someone who isn't reciprocating and create room for connections that will nourish you. Walking away is about reclaiming your peace and self-respect. It's about choosing yourself over a relationship that doesn't value your worth. When it comes time to walk away, you might wonder what to say to the other person. Often, we struggle with guilt or the fear of confrontation, and it's easy to over-explain ourselves or apologize for the decision. The truth is, you don't owe anyone an explanation for prioritizing your well-being. Here's a simple, direct line you can use when you've made the decision to walk away. I've thought a lot about this, and I've realized that this relationship isn't healthy for me anymore. I need to step away to focus on my own well-being. This line is clear, respectful, and firm. It communicates that you've made the decision for yourself, and it doesn't leave room for negotiation or guilt. You don't need to justify your decision beyond that. It's about protecting yourself and making a choice that aligns with your emotional needs. Let's imagine a scenario where you've been in a long-term friendship with someone who constantly drains your energy. They never offer support when you need it, and each time you help them, they seem to take more and more without giving anything in return. You've set boundaries, you've had conversations about your needs, but nothing changes. Each interaction leaves you feeling emotionally exhausted, and you start to feel like you're not being seen or appreciated. After months of trying to make the relationship work, you realize that the emotional toll it's taking on you is no longer worth it. You've given everything you can, but it's not enough. You decide it's time to walk away. You reach out to your friend and say, "I've thought a lot about this, and I've realized that this relationship isn't healthy for me anymore. I need to step away to focus on my own well-being." Your friend might be confused, angry, or even hurt. They might try to convince you to stay or ask what they can do to change. But you stand firm. You've made the decision because you recognize that staying would only continue to drain you. And as difficult as it is, you know that walking away is the best choice for your mental and emotional health. This decision is hard, but it's empowering. Over time, you feel lighter. You feel like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. You've made space for healthier, more balanced relationships that respect your boundaries and your emotional needs. Your tiny action for today is to identify one relationship where you feel emotionally drained or unappreciated. Reflect on the boundaries you've set in this relationship and ask yourself, are they being respected? If the answer is no, it might be time to reassess whether this relationship is worth keeping. Write down what you're feeling, and think about whether this relationship is contributing positively to your life. If you feel like you've reached the point where walking away is necessary, take a small step today, whether it's having a conversation with the person, setting clearer boundaries, or mentally preparing yourself for the possibility of letting go. Your action today doesn't have to be final, but it should be a step in the direction of protecting your emotional health. Let's take a moment to sit with the feelings of walking away. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and slowly exhale. Now, think about the relationships in your life that have drained you. Allow yourself to feel the weight of those situations. Feel the emotional exhaustion, the frustration, and the helplessness of trying to make something work that isn't meant to. Now, imagine yourself walking away from one of those relationships. Picture yourself setting a firm boundary, communicating your decision calmly, and feeling a sense of peace and empowerment afterward. Visualize how your emotional energy starts to shift as you let go of the negativity and make room for relationships that honor your needs. Take another deep breath in and exhale. As you open your eyes, know that walking away is a sign of strength, not weakness. You're choosing yourself. Section 7. You've walked away from a toxic or one-sided relationship, and now you're standing in the quiet space that you've created for yourself. At first, this newfound freedom feels like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders. You have more time, more energy, and a sense of peace that you haven't felt in a long time. But after the initial relief, you might also start feeling the emptiness. The silence that fills the space left by the person you've let go of can be unsettling. You might question whether you made the right choice or even feel a sense of guilt for walking away in the first place. Here's the truth: letting go of a relationship that wasn't serving you is one of the healthiest choices you can make for your emotional well-being. But just because you've set a boundary and walked away doesn't mean that the journey is over. The real work begins after you let go, as you rebuild your emotional life and move forward with a sense of clarity, strength, and purpose. In this section, we're going to talk about how to rebuild after you've let go of a relationship. We'll explore how to fill the emotional space with healthy connections, how to heal from the emotional wounds left behind, and how to move forward with a renewed sense of self. Rebuilding doesn't mean rushing into new relationships or distractions. It means taking the time to reconnect with yourself and your values before opening the door to new connections. After you let go of a toxic or draining relationship, it's normal to feel a sense of loss. It's easy to think that something is missing or that you're empty without that person in your life. But the truth is, you're not empty. You've just made space for something healthier to enter. Healing is not about filling the void left behind by someone else. It's about reconnecting with your own emotional needs, rediscovering your worth, and creating relationships that honor your boundaries. Healing takes time, and that time is yours to invest in yourself. During this time, you'll likely experience moments of doubt or sadness. You might miss the connection you once had with that person, or you might worry that you'll never find a relationship that's as fulfilling. But as you focus on yourself and your emotional well-being, you'll start to realize that you are your own source of strength and stability. You don't need someone else to validate your worth. You've already done that for yourself. Why does this work? Because rebuilding your life after letting go of a relationship is not about replacing what was lost. It's about strengthening the relationship you have with yourself. By focusing on self-care, self-reflection, and emotional growth, you create a foundation for healthier relationships in the future. You become more resilient, more aware of your needs, and more confident in setting boundaries that protect your emotional energy. When you're healing from the emotional aftermath of letting go, you might encounter moments of vulnerability or self-doubt. You might start to question whether you made the right decision or whether you'll ever find meaningful connections again. Here's a simple line to remind yourself that you've done the right thing and that your emotional health is worth prioritizing. I deserve relationships that are balanced, respectful, and fulfilling, and I am worthy of taking the time to build those connections. This line is a gentle affirmation that reinforces your decision to let go and gives you the strength to continue moving forward. It's a reminder that your well-being comes first, and you are deserving of love and respect that is mutual, not one-sided. Let's consider a situation where you've ended a long-term friendship that had become emotionally draining. After months of trying to make the relationship work and setting boundaries that were constantly ignored, you made the decision to walk away. At first, you felt a sense of relief and clarity, but soon after, you started feeling a void. You missed the companionship and the history you shared with this person. You began to question whether you'd made the right choice, wondering if this was the end of meaningful friendships for you. One day, a mutual friend of yours reached out and asked if you'd like to meet for coffee. You hadn't seen this friend in a while, and you felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. This friend had always respected your boundaries, but you were still feeling vulnerable after walking away from the toxic relationship. You decide to go, reminding yourself that it's okay to take small steps toward rebuilding your social circle. At the coffee shop, you reconnect with your friend, and the conversation feels light, genuine, and supportive. Your friend asks how you're doing, and you open up about your recent decision to walk away from the draining relationship. Instead of judgment, your friend listens attentively and validates your feelings. They remind you that setting boundaries is an act of self-respect, and that it's okay to outgrow certain relationships. You leave the meeting feeling lighter, empowered, and hopeful. This moment becomes a reminder that healthy relationships, based on mutual respect and care, are still out there. And while it's important to heal from the loss, it's also essential to make space for connections that align with your emotional needs. Your tiny action for today is to take one step toward rebuilding your emotional life. This might mean reconnecting with someone who respects your boundaries, whether it's a friend, family member, or even a colleague. Set aside time this week to nurture a healthy connection with someone who uplifts you. It could be as simple as sending a text to a friend you've been meaning to catch up with, or planning a coffee date with someone who has always respected your emotional needs. This small action is about refilling your emotional cup with relationships that add value and respect your boundaries. By taking this step, you begin to rebuild the healthy connections you deserve. Let's take a moment to reflect on the journey you've just been through. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. Now, think about the relationship you've let go of and how you're feeling now, having made that decision. Acknowledge any feelings of doubt, sadness, or fear, but also recognize the strength it took for you to walk away. Now, imagine yourself rebuilding your emotional life. Picture yourself investing time in relationships that nourish you, relationships where your boundaries are respected, and where you feel seen and appreciated. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and exhale slowly. Visualize the future, where you are surrounded by healthy, balanced relationships that honor your emotional needs. As you open your eyes, know that the journey of rebuilding is just beginning, and it's one you're fully capable of walking with strength and confidence. Section 8. After letting go of toxic or one-sided relationships and rebuilding your emotional life, you may find yourself in a phase of reflection. You've created space for yourself, reconnected with your own needs, and protected your emotional energy. But as time passes, you may start to feel the urge to build new relationships that are more aligned with your values and boundaries. This is a natural progression after letting go of people who drained you. Cultivating new relationships is exciting, but it's also a process that requires intentionality. The relationships you choose to nurture moving forward must respect your boundaries and align with your emotional needs. This means being mindful of the type of people you invite into your life and being clear about what you need from them. While it can be tempting to jump into new connections, it's essential to approach this phase with caution and self-awareness. In this section, we'll explore how to cultivate new relationships that are healthy, balanced, and supportive. We'll talk about how to recognize red flags and potential connections, how to establish new relationships while maintaining your emotional boundaries, and how to ensure that the people you allow into your life contribute to your well-being rather than draining it. When you've spent time setting boundaries and letting go of unhealthy relationships, you've learned how much energy goes into nurturing your emotional health. Building new relationships that nourish you is not just about finding new friends or partners, it's about creating relationships that enrich your life and support your growth. The key to this is ensuring that these relationships are reciprocal, where both parties give and receive emotional support in a balanced way. Building healthy, balanced relationships works because it allows you to maintain your emotional energy while still connecting with others. Healthy relationships are based on mutual respect, shared values, and open communication. When you invest in these kinds of relationships, you feel supported, valued, and understood. In turn, these relationships help you maintain your boundaries and emotional health, creating a positive feedback loop where both people feel energized rather than drained. Why does this approach work? Because when both people in a relationship are committed to maintaining emotional health, it's easier to navigate challenges, communicate needs, and respect each other's boundaries. This creates a foundation of trust and emotional safety, allowing the relationship to grow in a healthy, balanced way. As you start cultivating new relationships, you'll need to communicate your boundaries early on to ensure they're respected. It might feel awkward at first, especially if you're used to being the one to give more than you receive. But setting the tone for a healthy relationship early on will save you from emotional burnout later. Here's a simple, effective line you can use when you meet someone new, whether in a romantic, platonic, or professional context. I really value clear communication and mutual respect in my relationships. I believe it's important to be honest about our needs from the beginning. This line clearly communicates that you are committed to maintaining healthy, balanced relationships and that you expect the same from others. It's assertive, yet gentle, and sets the stage for open communication and mutual understanding. Let's imagine you've met someone new through a mutual friend. This could be a potential romantic partner, a new friend, or even a colleague. You've enjoyed getting to know them, but you're mindful of the boundaries you've set for yourself after the previous toxic relationship. You've learned from your past experiences that you can't let people walk all over your emotional energy again. So, as the relationship progresses, you decide to have a conversation about your boundaries. During a casual hangout, you say, "I really value clear communication and mutual respect in my relationships. I believe it's important to be honest about our needs from the beginning." Your new friend or partner nods and responds, "I completely agree." It's refreshing to hear someone be so open about this. "I'm on the same page." By having this conversation early on, you're setting the stage for a relationship that respects both your emotional needs and theirs. You're establishing a foundation built on honesty, transparency, and mutual care. As the relationship grows, you both have the framework to handle challenges respectfully and constructively. Your tiny action for today is to have one conversation with someone you're currently building a relationship with, whether it's a friend, family member, or romantic interest, where you set clear boundaries and express your need for mutual respect. This doesn't have to be a heavy conversation. It can be simple and lighthearted. The goal is to express your commitment to a balanced, healthy connection right from the start. You could say something like, "I really value open communication in my friendships and relationships, and I think it's important that we both feel comfortable setting boundaries. What are some of your needs or boundaries when it comes to our connection?" This conversation will help you create a safe space for both of you to express your needs, laying the foundation for a relationship that honors both people's emotional well-being. Let's pause for a moment of reflection. Close your eyes, take a slow, deep breath in, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly. Now, think about the kind of relationships you want to cultivate. What do you need in a relationship to feel emotionally supported and valued? Take a moment to reflect on your own emotional needs, whether it's space, time to recharge, clear communication, or shared activities. Now, imagine yourself in a new relationship where these needs are respected. Picture a connection where both people communicate openly, set clear boundaries, and prioritize each other's emotional health. How does it feel to be in a relationship that nourishes you, rather than drains you? Breathe in deeply, hold it, and exhale slowly, grounding yourself in this vision of healthy, balanced relationships. As you open your eyes, know that you are ready to build relationships that respect and honor your boundaries. You have the tools, the mindset, and the clarity to create connections that support your emotional well-being. Section 9. Imagine it's a Friday night. You've just wrapped up a long week of work, and all you want to do is unwind. You sit on the couch, ready to relax with a good book, but then your phone buzzes. It's a text from your friend, the one who always seems to need something when you're already at your limit. You know this text isn't just a check-in. It's another emotional emergency. They need advice, a listening ear, or maybe just someone to vent to. You feel the familiar tension creeping in. You've already been drained by this relationship before, but now you're wondering, do I pick up and engage? Or do I finally say no? You pause for a moment. You think about what you've learned over the past several weeks, setting boundaries, navigating discomfort, and recognizing the emotional cost of giving too much. You know this is the moment of truth. You've already set boundaries with this friend in the past, but they've ignored them. They expect you to be there whenever they need you, even at the expense of your own time and energy. This time, you decide to put those boundaries to the test. You take a deep breath and decide to send a simple but firm response. "Hey, I'm really tired tonight, and I need to take care of myself. Let's catch up tomorrow." It feels like a small victory, nothing major, just a simple assertion of your need for space. But immediately after sending the message, the discomfort hits. You wonder if you've been too harsh, if your friend will be upset, or if they'll think you don't care. Your mind starts to race, but you remind yourself that this is exactly what you've been practicing, setting a boundary to protect your energy without guilt. You've done the right thing for yourself, and that's what matters most. The turning point. The discomfort is real. It's not easy to stand your ground when you're used to being the person others turn to. You feel the weight of guilt creeping in, but you sit with it. This is the turning point, the moment when you could go back to old habits, pick up the phone, and give more of yourself. But instead, you honor your own needs. You've learned that setting boundaries is not about being cold or uncaring. It's about making sure you're emotionally available when you choose to be, not because someone else demands it. As the night goes on, you find yourself settling back into the calm you've been craving. You take a few moments to reflect on your day, your week, and your emotional health. You realize that the guilt you felt was temporary. It's a natural reaction, but it's not a sign that you've done something wrong. It's just a sign that you're pushing past old habits and making space for healthier ways of engaging with people. You remind yourself that boundaries are essential for your well-being, and if someone truly cares about you, they'll understand. The next morning, your friend messages you back, saying, "I get it, no worries. Hope you feel better." You feel a sense of relief that you've set the tone for a healthier relationship. You've communicated your limits, and they've respected it. The best part? You didn't have to over-explain or feel guilty about taking time for yourself. The outcome, a shift in the dynamic. This simple interaction has an immediate impact on your emotional health. You didn't sacrifice your peace for someone else's emotional needs. You didn't let the old patterns take over. Instead, you made a choice that supported your well-being, and in doing so, you created space for a more balanced and respectful relationship. By setting that boundary, you've started to shift the dynamic. You're no longer the person who is always available to take on someone else's emotional weight. You've proven to yourself, and to your friend, that your emotional health matters. This moment is a small but significant step in the right direction, where both of you are now more aware of each other's needs and respectful of each other's boundaries. As you go about your day, you feel lighter, more empowered. The discomfort you initially felt fades as you realize that this is what self-care looks like in action, taking a step back when you need to, not out of anger or resentment, but out of respect for your emotional limits. Slow practice moment. Take a moment now to reflect on a situation in your own life where you've struggled to set a boundary. Imagine yourself in that moment again, but this time, you respond with clarity and confidence. Picture yourself taking a deep breath, calmly communicating your needs, and feeling the relief that follows. Let that image sink in for a moment, and then take a slow, deep breath. Inhale, hold, and exhale, feeling the sense of calm that comes with honoring your boundaries. This practice isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Each time you assert your boundaries, it becomes easier. Each time you choose yourself, you grow stronger. The discomfort fades, and you start to feel more at peace with the choices you make. Section 10. In this lesson, we've taken a deep dive into boundaries, why they matter, how to set them, and what to do when relationships test them. We've discussed the importance of recognizing one-sided relationships and the emotional cost of always giving without receiving. You've learned that setting boundaries is a way to protect your emotional health, and it's a necessary step for creating healthier, more balanced relationships. The core lesson of today was simple, responding with intention, rather than reacting impulsively. By understanding where your emotional energy is being drained, setting boundaries, and learning when to walk away, you are taking control of your emotional life. Instead of letting people's demands dictate your mental and emotional well-being, you're choosing to invest your energy in relationships that respect you and your limits. By walking away from unhealthy relationships and rebuilding from a place of self-respect, you're setting yourself up for more fulfilling connections in the future. You're no longer just reacting to people's needs, you're responding from a place of clarity and self-awareness, knowing that your emotional health is just as important as anyone else's. Flowing recap. First, we looked at how to identify the relationships that are draining you, recognizing when the emotional exchange is one-sided. Then, we explored how to set healthy, firm boundaries that allow you to protect your energy without feeling guilty. After that, we discussed how to navigate the discomfort that arises when you start setting boundaries, acknowledging that it's a normal part of the process. We also talked about how to walk away from relationships that no longer serve you, and how to do so without guilt, understanding that prioritizing your emotional health is the right decision. Next, we covered the importance of rebuilding your emotional life after letting go of toxic relationships. You've learned that rebuilding isn't about replacing what was lost, but rather reconnecting with yourself and creating space for new, healthier relationships. Finally, we talked about cultivating new relationships that align with your values and boundaries, ensuring that the connections you make moving forward are ones that honor your emotional needs. Do today's steps. 1. Today, set one clear boundary. Whether it's at work, with a friend, or in your personal life, identify one area where you've been overgiving and set a clear boundary. Use the script you've learned today to communicate your needs calmly and respectfully. 2. Reflect on a relationship that's draining you. Take a moment to write down your feelings about a specific relationship where you're giving more than you're receiving. Think about how you can set a boundary in that relationship, or if it might be time to walk away. Remember, your emotional health matters. 3. Reach out to someone who respects your boundaries. Cultivate a healthy connection by reaching out to a friend, family member, or colleague who has consistently respected your emotional needs. Strengthen that relationship by continuing to invest in mutual respect and clear communication. Watch next pointer. If this lesson resonated with you, next you'll want to watch the lesson on emotional resilience, bouncing back after setting boundaries, where we dive deeper into how to strengthen your emotional resilience after making difficult decisions in relationships. This follow-up lesson will give you more tools to maintain your boundaries and rebuild your emotional strength. If you want a whole library of Stoic Focus lessons on emotional control, boundaries, and relationships, this is what we do here every week. If you feel messages like this need to reach more people, hit like, tap subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.